Welcome back to Listen and Level Up. I'm your host, Lauren Everett, digital storytelling extraordinaire at B-Lab US in Canada. And this is the last installment, but certainly not the least. What can I say about the women sitting next to me? They are phenomenal, and who better to introduce them than the ladies themselves?
Hi, I'm Dr. Melissa Sue John. I'm the owner of Lauren Simone Publishing House, a diverse children's book company created with my daughters for diverse children for ages 3 to 10 years old. We help aspiring authors and illustrators to become published.
I am Lisbeth Carolina Arias, and I am the CEO and founder of Descalza. Descalza is a made-to-measure clothing brand where we collaborate with artisans from Latin America to create unique statement pieces in North Carolina that reflect our story of being de aquí y de allá.
Hi, I'm Clorinda Stanley, aka Farmer C, CEO of Green Heffa Farms. I am an herbal wellness company based in North Carolina, and we operate our own herbal tea farm.
I'm Asha Wheeldon. I am the CEO and founder of KULA Foods. KULA means eat in Kiswahili, and we specialize in manufacturing and distributing plant-based proteins and sauces that really highlight East African and Caribbean flavors, while at the same time tackling options without sugar, so barbecue sauces and hot sauces.
I'm Aurora Archer. I am the CEO and founder of The Opt-In, a culture strategy firm helping leaders and organizations stay relevant by evolving the human through cultural competency curriculum, evolving the work through cultural strategy so that everyone is represented and included.
Okay, we're talking about the importance of representation, and there's no shortage of it on this couch. So I want to start with acknowledging that all of us live at various intersections, right? And I'm curious to know from your perspective, how do you navigate those intersections within your company and just in the business world in general?
Well, as a Black woman who's also an immigrant, who's also a mother, I face different obstacles with those different identities, but I bring them in with determination and persistence and networking, right? Using my resources to meet other people. I'm a professor as well, and I'm always the only one in those spaces. And that's no different in the publishing industry. It's literally 80% white women, straight, non-gender queer, non-disability, right? So using my experiences of like the American dream, my determination, the legacy I want to leave for my kids, it allows me to network, make partners, and find white allies who support my vision to help build the dream that we have for the business.
To build on that, I think for me as an Afro-Latina, as a first generation on many levels, I think I use my identity as my superpower. And the intersection of my identities as a superpower. It is also one of the core elements that in our organization we use to help other people understand and become aware of their identity, because their ability to understand their identity allows them to understand all of our identities. We cannot give what we do not know and understand ourselves.
A word to start already.
Yeah. So I think for me, as a Black woman in agriculture, the latest U.S. agriculture census data shared that less than 42,000 farmers in this country identify as Black. And then when you look at that number and you look at it to see how many are women, it's minuscule. And the history of agriculture in our country, I feel that number is an indictment as to how much work we need to do. And so for me, going into spaces, I'm in the South, I grow medicinal plants and herbs, which for me, it's really about aligning with spaces where I'm going to show up wholly.
Of course.
Your comfort is not my ministry. So I'm not going to in any way minimize my identity. I'm going to be a Black woman in any space and finding spaces where I can be my whole self comfortably in a safe space.
I'm also an immigrant, a mom. I'm also a vegan and a business owner and a mentor. So I think for myself, I look at I do look at it as a superpower because I have been in many spaces, and I live in a country where I don't really see a lot of myself represented.
Yeah.
So it almost becomes like it's my mission to create the space. I think that's what I look at. So if I am entering a room, I think about how else and who else is going to be joining me. And even if it means I have to be the first. So I'm in the food space and I sell to groceries. And one of the things that I identify is there are less than 1% businesses that are owned by Black folks in Canada. And it's not that far behind in the US as well. And so, I could not do it, or I could actually establish that space, but also bring more folks in. So that's sort of how I play it, and I lean into my communities and communities because it is so different and vast based on my identity.
I'm a Latina, I'm a mom, and I'm also an immigrant. And I think for me, showing up in the spaces, I am uncomfortable. It's not easy. And I know a lot of times I'm going to get the questions of where it feels like I'm having to speak on the behalf of everyone. And it's frustrating, but I share my story because I want people to know that, like, in this space, like, we need to be here. And I show up because we have to, if it makes you feel uncomfortable that I'm there, it's because you never invited me. And so it's uncomfortable, and I do it in spite of uncomfortableness and the fear, because I'm thinking of 10-year-old me, and I'm thinking of what she needed. And so that's my thought process. That's what, turns that fear into courage. It's just thinking about everyone that's my community. Like he said, like everyone that's relying on me to speak my truth so that we're heard.
Yeah. And a big part of community building is leading with authenticity and leading with truth. And of course, there is no lack of authenticity here, especially with you. So I'm curious, like, when you're leading with that authenticity, how does it help you to navigate the spaces that are predominantly white? Because I think everyone's industry is predominantly white. So when you're leading with that authenticity, what does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it help you to navigate those spaces?
Well, I am a herb farmer, so I grow botanical unbotheredness. So that helps a lot with being authentic. Inauthenticity is stressful. And stress leads to illness, mental, emotional,
It kills you.
affects your well-being. And so for me to be inauthentic is just practicing poor health. And I love myself too much for that. And I feel that my authentic self is bringing value and is an asset. You go into those spaces and there is the pressure of assimilating, right? There's the pressure of fitting in. You don't want to feed into any stereotypes or into any negative perceptions that people may have about your community. And that can be very burdensome, and that can be such a weight. And I think for me, the way that I remain inauthentic is I think about all of those who are coming after me. And if I continue on with this trend of inauthentic energy, then I'm basically going to continue perpetrating that. And no one can ever learn and be able to grow.
I think a lot of times for me, it's just staying true, right? And your truth is your truth. My truth is my truth. And they don't have to be the same. And I think for me, I am also at the stage where I am in a lot of white spaces. I spend most of my time in white spaces. And I no longer feel the need to expend that level of energy for someone's comfort.
When was that turning point for you? Because I know a lot of people come into business and they feel the need to code switch or assimilate or bear the burden or feel as though they have to speak for their entire community, right? So was there a turning point somewhere along the way that you were like, I'm not doing that anymore?
When you get past that point where for me personally, right? As many of us, we are first generation. We are not only walking into those rooms creating financial independence for us, but we are on the task to create financial independence for our families and our communities. And this is why, for me, the ability for us to move out of survival and into that financial independent mode as quickly as we possibly can, I think is critical. Because we are having to compromise, right? It's like, do I eat or do I show up as my whole self?
So I'll tell a little story. I grew up in a small town called Isiolo. I grew up with my grandfather. And one of the rituals in our tribe, and many tribes, is remembering who you are and remembering where you come from. And one of the things he often asked is, what's your name? And so I would repeat my name, right? And the name would go as in, you inherit when you have a name. It's not just your name, it's the name before you and before and before. So Asha, Tato, KULA, Dandarcha. It's critical to know that you're not alone. And so my authenticity, I really realized the power because, like, again, looking back at businesses, what is the differentiator that I would go into, right? I think remembering that is critical when you're, in a new country. I've gone through different spaces and movements in my life, and we do that. I do that with my kids, right? So it's important for that to kind of pass on to the next generation also.
Yeah, I think of, oh my gosh, like as an immigrant, for me, and one of the reasons why I started everything in the first place was because I felt that in the spaces that I identified, they weren't identifying me. And so, for example, here, growing up in North Carolina, like I wasn't American enough because of how seamlessly I can go from one language to another, or because, my skin complexion or my hair. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe they're right. My birth certificate says that I'm not from here. So in El Salvador, I would assume that I would feel that sense of this is where I was born. But for everyone else, it's like, no, I can hear your broken Spanish. You weren't raised here. Like you didn't go through the school system here. You don't know what the traffic is like. So then it's like, okay, well, where do I belong, right? Where do I go? And I think for me, it's like, you know what? I want to stop letting people make those decisions for me. And I'm like, you know what? I am from both, and I'm proud to be from both. And yeah, I'm a little mixed. Like I, watch football, but I also watch football.
Yes.
And I'm proud of that. And I think, it's learning to not let others define you and like take your narrative. It's my story, and I'm going to tell it how I want to.
Absolutely. I know that's right. Yeah. So I want to pivot because, well, first of all, who here is a certified B Corp? Oh my God. Now, see, I have to put you in the hot seat for a second because you are an OG.
Yes.
So the OG. Yes.
We are all here
Yes.
as a level participant because of this incredible human.
Yeah.
Who
I was part. But go ahead.
give
Brag
her
on me.
flowers.
Brag on me. I'm sorry, sis. Continue.
you, and this is about being authentic.
Yeah.
This is about leading from the front. And this is about imagining the possibility of a different model. And you created that for all of us. That is the legacy that you have cemented and seeded. So thank you. Hugely thank you.
Let me give you a moment to receive those
You're
flowers.
right. I'm like over here. Like what she has said.
Yeah. And that's why I want to highlight you first and foremost, because you did pave the way for so many women. I think, if I'm correct, there are 29 certified B Corps who have come through the level program. So I want to know from your perspective, because it was your experience that paved the way for this program to be. How did that come about? What was the need that you saw?
Well, for me, I didn't look at this certification as a way for me to do business better. I do business the exact same way because I developed my business from the beginning based on core values.
Yeah.
So it really was more of an economic decision because I know that for me, I have to ensure that when my products are on the shelves, it is as competitive as any other product. And so when I did my research, this certification definitely was one that would help with my economic goals.
Yeah.
When I went through the assessment, almost immediately I was like, oh, they're not looking for business owners like me. Because I can tell from the way that the questions are written, how they're framed, what you're asking for, you're focusing more on those who need to transition to doing business a certain way, as opposed to those of us who that's the only way we do business. And so I went back to B Lab, and essentially said, I would like to help level the playing field as well as the planting field, because I see where there will be challenges for those who identify as women business leaders, as well as I see challenges for those in the agricultural space.
Yeah.
And if you are a Black woman in agriculture, you really have almost made this impossible for someone like me to go through the process. And so that's where the conversation started. I will honestly say what I can appreciate about the B Lab team, because I've attempted to have these conversations in a few rooms. Not everyone is receptive.
Yeah.
Or they'll tell you a few things to placate you and send you on your way. And then they continue to go on doing business as they've been doing. I was the first to go through the process. And I'm pretty direct, if you haven't noticed. So throughout the process, I'm like, not working. This isn't. And there was always an energy of co-creation, which just made the experience that much more validating.
Yeah.
And I think the impact is the impact of anytime one of us steps into a table, whether it's B Corp, B Lab, there is value.
Yeah.
There is perspective. There is imagination. There is collaboration and community. So I think that for any table, particularly B Labs, that's what we bring to that table, is an opportunity to expand the way that B Lab is setting its strategic pillars, its strategic evolution, because our perspective is at the table.
Absolutely.
That, I believe, is the huge impact and the benefit to B Lab. And I said this very candidly when I became a B Corp, which is, I think that the Level program is by far one of the most strategic initiatives for the B Lab organization globally.
Now, I'm curious to hear what was enticing about the Level program that made you say, this is how I need to get in to become a certified B Corp?
So I had a first attempt. I just went online. And I went through all the questions. I naturally like to do some research, and I love what you said around this is how I operate my business, and that's what it was. I had pillars that we followed, and that's what we've proceeded with.
Yeah.
But I didn't really understand what these steps would look like, and I just read a lot, and it got really blurry for me when I heard policies and everything else. And so, yeah, I think connecting to Level is community. So it was one person, I didn't find out until maybe a couple of years later in my business that I was connected through Decade, and they were like, you need to, and again, that's where the authenticity is, right? Someone has seen the work and they thought maybe you should consider this.
I had a similar experience. So I went through, so I graduated from NC State, and we have the bee clinic there. And so I went through it. I submitted, and I didn't get to the next step. And it's like, oof. And I was like, I need a little bit more help.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, I'm not doing enough. And so, I get connected with Carolina from Cultivating Capital, and, we're dissecting. She's like, no, you're doing enough and more. We just need to have the proof and the documentation and the proper language and all that stuff. And so for me, it was just I needed that guidance and that support. And it was because Carolina saw that, and she was like, you would be great for the Level program. And that's how I, got woven into there.
I did a business accelerator called Reset, and there was social impact emphasis. So I had never heard anything about B Corp. So a part of the program said that you have to pitch for your business, and when you win your business, in your budget, you should pay for the certification. And one of the requirements, they had Impact Growth Partners speak, and they introduced us to the whole B Corp. And then I was also concerned about the economic aspect. Like, I'm a really small business owner. I don't know if I could afford to do this yearly. So then she introduced us to the level program, and it was amazing because the assessment is not a simple process.
It's not easy, right?
So it's nice when someone's already an expert and they can guide you through the process.
Yeah. What advice do you have for Black, Indigenous, and women of color entrepreneurs who are maybe struggling with, how do I show up as my authentic self? How do I ensure that I represent, not just for me, but my community, and not feel that burden? How do I get into the B Corp community and let them know, like, I'm here, I deserve to be here, and you need me here, just like I need you, that interdependence of it all?
Well, one thing that I do personally is I have a blog where everything I learn, I share. Like,
Shameless plug. Go ahead. Yes.
I share how to open a business, how to vending etiquette, just like literally every single thing that I've learned. Here are some grants to apply for. Here, so I share information. That's like, I'm an educator. That's literally what I do. Also, I serve on advisory boards. That's my way of introducing my fellow entrepreneurs. Like, here are some opportunities. Go into these rooms, introduce yourselves. Don't be afraid. So that's what I do personally.
Yeah.
I allow my joy to speak for me. My business is my customized joy factory. I don't feel we have to go and prove our value in any space.
Yeah.
I don't have to convince you I deserve to be in the room. So for me, I would say to other women, show up as who you are. If you can connect and learn from others, then that's going to just make your path just a lot much easier.
Yeah, I say build your community. I think there is just power when you can reach out to that person, and feel like you can just be yourself. And don't be afraid to just put these big visions down, right?
Yeah.
I had these 4 pillars. I had no idea what I was talking about. I had no idea how I was going to do it. But I knew why I switched the industry I was in and the business that I pursued. I needed a purpose. So I think walking with purpose and putting that down, I can go back. I've gone back years. Even during the assessments, I've had to go back and really think about what each point meant, and it's still quite relevant.
Just to add on to that, as long as you keep reminding yourself, what is my why for doing this, knowing your purpose, then you'll always be able to be your authentic self.
And I think for me, it's my biggest advice is dream, and dream big. I think a lot of times we keep what we are thinking, what we are imagining, we keep it in small containers to make it comfortable for people around us. And it's like, dream big, don't let them take that away from you. Number 2, I tell all my sisters and brothers, heal. Take the accountability for your well-being, your healing, because one thing that entrepreneurship will do is it will bring out all the wounds and all the areas where we have not examined our trauma and let go of belief systems that no longer serve us and will get in the way of that dream that has been put and placed into you.
And get your joy while you're healing, because a lot of times we feel like I have to heal first and then happiness is on the other side of healing. But get your joy while you're healing.
Absolutely. And then my third one is it's that learning mindset. Never stop growing internally and externally. And find the community and the squad and the group of women that are going to support you in that process.
I would say for me, it's, to not wait until everything's perfect. There are people that have done it with very little. I've done it with very little, and I know you can too. It's just, you got to put yourself out there. You got to let the uncomfortableness be okay with that. Especially like when I see someone, a fellow Latina or someone that looks like me and they're trying to get to where I am. I'm like, habla, like tell me what, I can't read You're mine. You have to tell me your needs so that I can be there. I can support you, or I can connect you to the people that are in my network, just like people have helped me. So, yeah.
Gift me the opportunity to be of service.
Yes.
Aurora, I have to end this conversation with you because you also were a catalyst for this conversation. Last year, you helped me co-create this conversation series, and I think back to the topic of disrupting with love, and that literally called people to the table to do exactly what we're doing here, to listen and to challenge themselves to level up. So share with me, share with us what the impact of having conversations like these mean for our community.
They're everything. Oh, you're going to make me get emotional.
I'm getting emotional.
They're everything, right? We are creatures, we are beings of connection. One of our greatest talents from years back is the storytelling, is the sharing of our stories, the sharing of who we are, and that remembering. And our greatest opportunity is to sit here and share that love.
Thank you. Before we wrap up this session, in the vein of giving our flowers, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Level's program manager, Alicia Hartley. If it wasn't for her, you wouldn't be hearing us. And the door wouldn't be off the hinges, as you said. For more women to come into the B Corp community, we need you. So if you are a Black, Indigenous, or woman of color looking to learn more about the Level program, if you know a BIPOC woman who could use the Level program, if you want to fund and give the girls money for the Level program, visit wearebcorps.com/level. And that's it, y'all.
Level up.
Yes.
Love.